Right, that's a very good question. And I think the key to the diagnosis is that the clinicians, may that be a GP, women's health GP, a gynecologist, is be aware of this disease, which is quite common. So the key questions to ask is, in addition to the period pain, do they have heavy period as well? And as we know, if they only have period pain, we all think it could be endometriosis, right? But if they have period pain as well as heavy bleeding, and then we need to suspect adenomyosis. So it's important that awareness is number one. You need to think about adenomyosis, and that's the step number one. And then we go for an ultrasound, right? And unfortunately, ultrasound signs are sometimes quite subtle. So unless the radiologist or the sonographer or the sonologist will pre-warn that we're suspecting adenomyosis, so that they look for those subtle signs, and those ultrasound signs can be easily missed. So if we're looking for adenomyosis, we're thinking about adenomyosis, if ultrasound didn't pick up those signs, and the next step is to do an MRI. But unfortunately, as we know, MRI is expensive, and MRI in Australia is not funded by Medicare for this purpose, for the purpose of diagnosis of adenomyosis, and therefore it can be quite expensive. It's all out of pocket. But MRI is more sensitive and more specific, in other words, more accurate in diagnosing adenomyosis. This is especially so if there are also fibroids in the uterus. We've noticed that if there's fibroid in the uterus as well, quite often ultrasound miss the diagnosis of the adenomyosis. So it is important to distinguish the two, because the treatment can be different.
With all the advancement in medicine, how do we still miss it?
I think the main thing is lack of awareness. It's a disease within the uterine muscle wall, and the gynecologist got very good tool like a laparoscopy to diagnose endometriosis, which is outside the uterus, right? They can also do a telescope called hysteroscopy and insert that into the cavity. You have to look inside the cavity and what's wrong. And sometimes whatever inside the cavity, may that be a polyp or fibroid, and that can cause heavy bleeding as well. But what they don't see is within the wall of the uterus. That's why we rely on cross-sectional imaging like ultrasound or MRI to make the diagnosis. As I previously mentioned, the signs on ultrasound is so subtle, and unless we pay attention to it, adenomyosis can be missed. And unfortunately, MRI is not funded by Medicare. It is expensive, so it's not widely used for diagnosis of adenomyosis. But I think we should raise awareness. We should lobby the government and to pay for MRI for the diagnosis of adenomyosis.